Puerto Rico has one of the most convincing tourist brochures on earth. Turquoise water, white sand beaches, a 16th century walled city painted in every color you can think of, a rainforest, a bioluminescent bay that actually glows blue at night, mofongo and lechon, and the fact that this is where the pina colada was invented. And this is the part that gets American specifically. No passport required. It checks every box, which is why roughly 6 million people visit Puerto Rico every year, and why the island's entire economy is built around making sure they leave happy. But here's what very few of those 6 million people understand before they go. Puerto Rico is one of the most complicated places in the entire Western Hemisphere. The things that make it beautiful as a destination and the things that make it brutal as a home are often the exact same things, just seen from different angles. Today, we're getting into both versions. If you visit Puerto Rico, you will probably arrive in San Juan, and San Juan will immediately do exactly what it is supposed to do. Old San Juan is one of the most visually striking neighborhoods in the Americas. The old city sits behind walls that were built by the Spanish in the 1500s to protect the island, and those walls are still there. So are the colorful Spanish colonial buildings, the cobblestone streets made from blue-gray ballast stones brought over from Europe, and the two massive forts that look like they belong in a fantasy novel. You will take more photos in one afternoon than you have in the past year. It's that kind of place. The beaches are genuinely extraordinary. Flamenco Beach on the island of Culebra has been ranked one of the best beaches in the world, and that ranking is not exaggerating. The water is the specific shade of blue that makes you feel like you are inside of a screensaver. The snorkeling is excellent, the vibe is relaxed, nobody's in a hurry, and nothing bad is happening, and the sun is doing its thing. El Yunque, the only tropical rainforest in the entire U.S. National Forest System, is about an hour from San Juan. You can hike through it, swim in natural pools beneath waterfalls, and hear sounds you've never heard before. It is genuinely beautiful. And the food. The food in Puerto Rico is the kind of thing people talk about for years after they visit. Mofongo, mashed plantains with garlic and pork. It sounds simple and tastes like something you can't explain. Lechon, a slow-roasted whole pig from the lechoneras along the pork highway in Guabete, is a pilgrimage worth making. The rum here is world-class, the food is cheap relative to what you're getting, and eating your way through the island is a completely legitimate reason to visit. And the bioluminescent bays, there are 3 of them in Puerto Rico, the largest concentration anywhere in the world. At night, the microorganisms in the water glow blue when you disturb them. You paddle a kayak through what looks like liquid light. It's one of the more surreal and beautiful experiences available on this planet. As a visitor, Puerto Rico feels like it has it all, and it does. The question is, what does it cost the people who actually live there? Here's something that might surprise you. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens by birth. They can serve in the military, they pay into Social Security, they can move freely to any U.S. state, and they can carry a U.S. passport. But they cannot vote for president, not while they live on the island. They have no voting representation in Congress, they have a non-voting resident commissioner in the House, and no senators. Approximately 3.2 million American citizens living on U.S. territory have essentially no say in the federal government that controls their lives. The relationship between Puerto Rico and the United States has been complicated since 1898, when the U.S. took the island from Spain at the end of the Spanish-American War. The people of Puerto Rico did not choose that arrangement. And over the centuries since, there have been ongoing debates, often heated, sometimes violent historically, about whether Puerto Rico should become a U.S. state, become an independent country, or remain what it is now, which is technically called a commonwealth but functions somewhere between a colony and a state, depending on who you ask and what day it is. Multiple referendums have been held on the question of statehood. The results have repeatedly shown majority support for statehood among Puerto Ricans who voted. Congress has not acted. This is the political air that people who actually live in Puerto Rico breathe every day, not as an abstract issue, as the actual structure of their existence. Now, let's talk about electricity, because this is where things get difficult. Puerto Rico's power grid is by nearly every measure one of the worst in the entire United States system. Before Hurricane Maria hit in September 2017, the grid was already aging and unreliable. Then Maria, a Category 4 storm that made direct landfall on the island, destroyed roughly 80% of the island's power transmission lines. It became the largest blackout in U.S. history. The recovery was catastrophic in its slowness. Some parts of Puerto Rico went without electricity for nearly a year. An estimated 3,000 people died as a result of the storm and its aftermath. The federal government's response was widely criticized as inadequate. Paper towels were thrown at people who needed rebuilding. Today, the grid is managed by a company called Luma Energy, which took over in 2021, and the situation has not improved the way residents were promised it would. Outages are still frequent. Power bills are among the highest in the US. A rainstorm or moderate wind event can knock out electricity for hours or days. Residents who can afford it have solar panels and battery backup systems. Residents who cannot afford those things deal with whatever comes their way. Then there is the Jones Act. This is a 1920 federal law that requires any goods shipped between U.S. ports to be carried on ships that are U.S. built, U.S. owned, and mostly U.S. crewed. For Puerto Rico, which is an island that imports the vast majority of its goods and cannot receive shipments from cheaper foreign vessels without them first going through a U.S. port, the Jones Act significantly raises the cost of nearly everything: food, fuel, building materials. Estimates vary on exactly how much it costs Puerto Rican consumers every year, but economists generally agree it is in the billions. So you're paying more for everything, your electricity is unreliable and expensive. The federal government has limited accountability to you because you cannot vote for it. This is Tuesday in Puerto Rico. In 2012, the Puerto Rican government created a set of tax incentives now known collectively as Act 60. The short version: wealthy individuals who become residents of Puerto Rico and meet certain requirements can pay 0% in capital gains taxes on investments made after moving there. 0. For Americans used to paying 20% or more in federal capital gains tax, this is an extraordinary deal. And it worked in the sense that it attracted a significant wave of wealthy mainland Americans, crypto investors, tech entrepreneurs, and finance people to Puerto Rico. Specifically to San Juan neighborhoods like Condado and Santurce, demand for upscale housing went up. Rents went up, property values went up, restaurants and businesses catering to wealthy newcomers opened. Locals who had lived in those neighborhoods for generations found themselves priced out. Puerto Rico has a poverty rate of around 43%. It is the highest of any U.S. state or territory. Nearly half the island lives in poverty. And into that reality came a wave of wealthy Americans looking for a legal tax shelter, many of whom did not speak English and were not particularly interested in integrating into the community they were moving into. The resentment this created is real. The displacement is real. There's a word used by Puerto Ricans for people who move from the mainland and treat the island as a lifestyle accessory rather than a home. They call them gringos. It is not always said with affection. And underneath all of this is the brain drain. Puerto Rico has been losing population for decades. The people leaving are disproportionately young and educated. Between 2010 and 2020, Puerto Rico lost 11% of its population, nearly 500,000 people. Many of them left because they could not find jobs that matched their skills. Many left because of the storm. Many left because of the island's economic situation that made staying feel impossible. What remains is a population dealing with all of the structural problems of the island without the young workforce that might help solve them. And with the added layer of watching wealthy outsiders move in and claim the tax benefits of a place they had no part in building. Puerto Rico is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen content about. That's the honest truth. The beaches and the food and Old San Juan and the bioluminescent bays, all of it is real and none of it is exaggerated. But Puerto Rico is also a place where American citizens live without voting representation, where the power grid is still recovering from a storm that happened years ago, where the cost of basic goods is inflated by a 100-year-old federal law that Congress has repeatedly chosen not to repeal, and where gentrification is pushing out people whose families have been on the island for generations, while wealthy newcomers come for the tax breaks. Visiting Puerto Rico is a joy. Living there, for a lot of people, it's a daily negotiation with a system that has not prioritized them in a very long time. That's worth knowing. Drop your Puerto Rico experiences in the comments. I want to hear from people who visited, people who live there, people who left. I want to know what you think about the island. And subscribe if you want more videos that try to show both sides of places that look perfect from the outside. Thanks for watching.